Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Through this lecture, we are going to learn different public-private partnership models for infrastructure development, which is being practiced in the world today. Basically, in this discussion, we will find out that how different models are having different merits, and why there are certain models being implemented in many countries. So, these models are basically build and transfer, build, lease and transfer, build, operate and transfer, build, own and operate, build, operate, own and transfer, build, operate, lease transfer, build, operate, share transfer, build, own, operate, share transfer, rehabilitate, operate, transfer, and design, build, finance, operate, transfer. It is really difficult to remember all these models. But out of these models, we will have a separate discussion on build, operate, own and build, operate, transfer, which is mostly practiced as a part of public private partnership in the world today. But at the same time, we are also going to discuss little bit about all these models, because it will be difficult to really understand the merits of these models without having a brief discussion on these models. So, if we will have the separate discussion on build, operate, build, own, operate and build, operate, transfer, it will be a very good experience to have the background understanding of these different models which is being adopted as the part of public private partnership. Let me begin with the build and transfer model. This particular PPP model, which is based on the contractual agreement in which the party is responsible for financing and the constructing of the infrastructure facility, and after the finishing or completion of the project, the infrastructure or the facility is basically handed over to the government or to the government agency. So, the purpose of this type of model is to build the product and to transfer it to the government or to the government agency. The government agency pays the investment incurred in the project and agreed rate of return after the completion of the project. This type of model is mainly used for the critical infrastructure facilities for a strategic or security region, such as defense related infrastructure, and mandated to be operated solely by the government, because government may take the help of private parties to build up these such construction, such infrastructure, but when it comes for the operation, when it comes for the practical day to day maintenance, or to have the complete control on the functioning of some of the infrastructure, such as which is related to law and order and defense, government is not allowing any other private partner to really run the such infrastructure. After this, we can also have a look on the build, lease and transfer model. In this model, the private party or the developer basically design or construct or build and also finance the complete infrastructure facility. So, this is little different from the previous model, in the sense that upon completion, the facility is leased by the developer to the government for a fixed time period. In the previous model, in the build and transfer model, there was not any facility to lease by the developer to the government for a fixed time period, and in this particular model, build, lease and transfer model, only after that fixed period of time, after the expiry of the lease, the facility is automatically transferred to the government. So, lease come in between the build and transfer. So, that is why it is called build, lease, transfer. In our previous model it was only build and transfer. So, the contractor has to build the infrastructure and then it has to transfer, but in this model contractor has to build the infrastructure, then it has to lease to the government, and then after the expiry of the lease it has to transfer to the government. So, this is the second model. Now, the third model, which we can also see here as the build, operate, transfer model, BOT model. In BOT model, private entity is entitled by the contractual agreement to design, finance and construct the infrastructure facility, just like the previous model, in which we have also seen that the contractor is supposed to build, design and finance and construct the facility. But there is a slight difference between BLT and BOT. After the completion of the project, the private entity operates the facility to recover the investment, other operating and maintenance cost and make profit as agreed upon. So, compared to the previous model, this model is little different, because in build, operate, transfer, the party is really constructing, financing, designing the infrastructure, and after that it is being transferred. After the completion of the project, the private entity operates the facility to recover the investment and other operating and maintenance cost and make profits as agreed upon, and after that it is basically transferring that property to the government. In case of build, own, operate, this particular public private partnership model is based on a contract in which the private party is authorized to finance that particular infrastructure projects, again carry out the construction like the BOT, on the establishment, that is different from the BOT, and that is also different from the BLT, and that is also different from the BT model. In BT model, the operator is just the contractor is just building the infrastructure and transferring it. In BLT model, contractor is building the infrastructure and then giving it on lease to the government, and on the expiry of the lease it is basically transferred to the government. In BOT model, infrastructure is built up, it is owned for some time and then it is transferred to the government. In case of build, own, operate, the infrastructure is built up and carried out for the construction, and the contractor is owning the establishment, operating and maintaining the infrastructure facility and recovering the total cost of investment, including operation and maintenance cost, and reasonable returns in the form of toll taxes, fees, rentals or any other charges from the users. So, that way this particular model build, operate, build, own, operate model is completely different from the build, operate, transfer model, because in transfer model the project or the infrastructure developed is basically transferred after some time. Also in BLT model, build, lease, transfer model, after a certain period of lease or the expiry of the lease, project is basically transferred to the government. But in this case, in case of build, operate, own, operate, the facility is being built up, then it is being owned by the government, and at the same time it is being operated and maintained not by the government, but by the contractor forever. So, the next model, which is basically build, operate, own and transfer, a project based on the guaranteeing of a concession by a principal to the contractor, who is responsible for the construction, financing, operation and maintenance of a facility over the period of contract before finally infrastructure facility at no cost to the principal a fully operational facility. In this particular model, during the concession period, the promoter owns and operates the facility and collects revenue in order to repay the financing and investment cost, maintain and operate the facility and make a margin of the profit. So, in this particular model, the transfer comes in the last, but at the same time before transfer the owner has all operational ownership, all operational possibilities for the infrastructure, and at the same time they have the complete control on owning the particular infrastructure, and it will be transferred only after collecting all the expected revenues and the returns on the particular maintenance on the particular infrastructure development, because certain investments are being made for producing those infrastructure. So, compared to BT model, compared to the build and transfer model, this particular model is again including the ownership and operation activities, and this can be really used in non-strategic sector and non-defense sector, because government can rely on the contractor for providing the maintaining infrastructure, financing the infrastructure, operating and day to day take care of such infrastructure in certain fields, because when other strategic matters are not really included, then for urban development and for other infrastructure facilities being developed in rural areas and also in the urban areas, such operations, such models are being placed. So, after this we can also see here build, operate, lease, transfer model. In this non-traditional procurement model for financing an infrastructure facility, private party is entitled to design, build, own, operate and lease the facility, and finally transfer the ownership to the government at the end of the lease period. So, in BLT model, build, lease, transfer model, we had this contractor had the opportunity to build up, to lease it to the government and to transfer it, but here after building the infrastructure, the contractor or the party involved in building such infrastructure is ready to own it for some time, and then again it is going for leasing out, and then again finally it is going to transfer the that particular property to the government. So, this particular models, especially BOLT model, BOOO model, these models are basically models where you have to have more time for implementing such models, while in case of build transfer model, contractor has nothing to own, nothing to lease. So, it is more short period of PPP model where one can just build up and just transfer, but here in case of BOLT or BOT or BLT or BOOO model, in these models contractor has little more time to continue in the projects, because it is not only the building up and transferring it to the government, but it is also to build up, to own for some time, to lease out and again to transfer. So, 4 steps: building, owning, leasing and transfer, while in case of other models 3 steps, while in case of BOOO model again 4 steps. Now, the next model is build, operate, share and transfer model. In this model, the private entity is entitled to finance, construct, operate and maintain, and these private entities are again entitled to share a part of revenue with the government and transfer the infrastructure facility at the end of the period according to the contractual agreement. So, this particular model is completely different from other models, because here this is the model where government and the private party both are sharing certain infrastructure facility. and there is a contractual agreement between the contractor as well as the government to share such infrastructure facility. So, the private entity is allowed to recover its total investment, operating and maintenance cost plus a reasonable return by collecting fees, rentals or other charges from the users for the infrastructure facility. So, like other models also, in this particular model, this PPP model also allow the contractor to charge certain fees and toll taxes and rentals for the infrastructure which they have developed. But at the same time, the share part is the newness of this particular model, because government and private party both are sharing certain facilities, sharing certain revenues, sharing certain maintenance cost, sharing the operational mechanism, and that way this particular model is different. The next model is build, own, operate, share, transfer. In this particular model, the contracting private party is authorized to finance, construct, own, operate and maintain, share a part of the revenue and transfer the infrastructure facility at the end of the agreed period. Compared to the previous model, where we have seen that in case of build, operate, share, transfer model, the contractor is not owning that particular infrastructure for any time, but in the next model, in this particular model, the contractor is really owning the infrastructure facility which is developed, and the private party is also allowed to recover its total investment, operating and maintenance cost plus a reasonable return thereon by collecting fees, toll taxes, rentals and other charges from the users. So, compared to the previous model, where there is no owning part, there was only sharing part. Here in this model there is also owning part and sharing part. So, that is the new addition compared to the previous model. The next model is the rehabilitate, operate, transfer model. It is a kind of public private partnership model in which the private entities rehabilitate an existing facility, then operates and maintains the facility at its own risk for the contract period and finally transfer to the government. So, rehabilitate an existing facility means whatever facility, infrastructure facility was existing or is existing, that has to be rehabilitated first, then it will be operated and then it will be maintained, and the facility at its own risk for the contract between contract period and finally transfer it to the government. So, the private party take the risk of rehabilitating, operating, maintaining, and sometime majority of the risk is covered by the private party, but in some cases private party and government do share the risk together, and this particular model of public private partnership is suitable for the projects that involve a significant invest and operating content. Market risk is lower because there is a demand history of such rehabilitation activities. The next discussion on a different type of model is the design, build, finance, operate, transfer. So, there are 5 steps in this particular model, as it is clear that in this particular model the private party covers the entire obligation for the design, construction, finance, operate, maintain and the project for the period of agreement. The private participant to the project will recover its investment and return through the concession granted or through annuity payments, etc. Finally, the establishment is transferred to the public sector. So, as we can just see here that compared to the previous model, especially build, own, operate, share, transfer model and the build, operate, share, transfer model, we are finding that compared to these two models, this particular model is also involved in designing, building, financing, maintaining, operating, and then transferring the infrastructure to the government. So, the public sector may provide guarantee to financing agencies, help with the acquisition of the land, and assist to obtain statutory and environmental clearance, and provides approvals and also assure a reasonable return as per the contract. So, we can see here that in this particular model there is a sense of sharing the responsibility by the government, and for many reasons, for example, for the acquisition of land and providing the assistance for obtaining statutory and environmental clearance, and for the approval and also assurance for the reasonable return, government is one of the guarantor in this particular model. So, to sum up, we can just see here that these models are being practiced as per the economic, political and social conditions of the economy. As we can see, if the government is if a government in least developed countries are really not in the position to take care of the financial responsibility, in that case they cannot really share the financial burden with the company. So, they will go for maybe the build, operate, transfer model, or the build, operate, own model, or to have the build, transfer model if they have the financial support from other infrastructure multinational infrastructure companies, or maybe some international agencies. So, some of the models are subject to the place, the region, the political condition, the social condition, the economic indicators, and these models cannot be really implemented without taking care of the different preconditions of the society, preconditions of the political and economic level in a particular economy. So, success of these methods, these models are dependent on how successful the regulatory conditions of the infrastructure development. Suppose government is in the contract with a private party, and the private party is suddenly facing certain problem, and in that case, if the government is backtracking their role as a facilitator, as a provider of the services, as the provider of the law and order, as a provider of the guarantee on the financial imbalances or something, in that case the private party will be completely helpless. So, it all depends on the what political regime a country is having, what type of political reform a country is really has really practiced, apart from the economic reforms which a country should continue compared to the previous conditions of economic regulations and restrictions. So, if the country is really having a successful regulation of infrastructure development, a country will certainly get the certain returns, and if the country is more rigid in terms of the political ideology, or more rigid in terms of not allowing the many infrastructure companies to invest, or even if they are investing, if lots of protests are there in terms of land acquisition or something, in such a situation the success of any model is subject to the local condition. So, when these models are being discussed, when these models are being implemented in some of the states in India, or some of the in some other country of the world, people do cite the successful examples of such models and people do share the experiences in other country, but the fact is that these models are not successful as long as local economic conditions and the political ideology or the developmental models, country's developmental model is not really well discussed and is not really clear. In such a situation, investment, whatever investment is coming, it is not really giving us better result, as we have seen in case of Enron, which was one of the biggest investment in the history of India's soon after the India's economic reform process. But this was the biggest investment in infrastructure, electricity infrastructure, but finally the result is not really fruitful for India, and such indications are reaching to the world community, the investors community, and at the same time we are not giving any convincing answer to the investors that what was the main reason why one government has signed the contract and other government has refused to continue with that contract, why one government has allowed Enron to again continue with a reform contract, and then after some time government has started backtracking. So the political regime, political ideology is again one of the important factor when we are really talking about the public private partnership model. So the success of one method in one economy is not the guarantee of the success of the same method in other economy. So one can say that these models are being implemented in different economy, but before implementing these models, it is also important, it is imperative to find out the local conditions and local support in terms of economic indicators, in terms of social indicators, and in terms of political indicators. If all these supports are available, any model can be a successful model with a proper regulation and proper care. I think with this background we can really say that how public private partnership works and how different steps are being taken to implement different models of public private partnership. Thank you.